All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host, Jay Teagues, running coach, certified high-performance mindset and life coach, founder of the Do Hard Things Nation. I want to welcome you to another episode, and this is an awesome episode. I'm excited to have in the studio best-selling author, keynote motivational speaker, cancer survivor, Nick Klingensmith, who has an inspiring story about beating cancer, alcoholism, and other physical ailments. He has a no excuse mindset that embodies, what it means to do hard things. That's enabled him to complete over 100 Spartan races, several marathons, and some ultras. He truly lives life on offense. Before we get into today's episode, just a few housekeeping notes. Make sure you smash that subscribe button so you're notified of future episodes. We're on Spotify, Apple, Pocket Cast, YouTube, all of your streaming platforms. We're there. We're also on all social media platforms. Like right now, we're live streaming on TikTok. We're on Facebook, which is where most of our community is. And it would mean a lot to us if you take a few minutes and go over to Apple iTunes and leave us a review. That's like the gold standard when it comes to reviews and in the podcast realm. So we really appreciate it. And if you like the content from today's episode, share it with a couple of your friends, because there's no doubt that, what Nick and I talk about can resonate and really help someone out. This episode is sponsored by the Do Hard Things Nation, which is a community committing to a life on offense, united by a focus on continuous self-improvement through mindset and motivation and movement. We offer monthly challenges, merch that inspires, and apparel that inspires, in-person events. We have running coaching plans, mindset performance coaching, and even a book club. It's an opportunity to network, learn and apply frameworks, opportunity to challenge yourself, and accountability. And if you become a Do Hard Things premium member, you can get a customized running plan, group high performance mindset coaching, journal prompts, access to the Do Hard Things book club, and academy membership, which has running, mindset, and life coaching training plans. Some upcoming events. We got the Do Hard Things 28-day challenge to kick off on the 1st of January. We have the Taji 100 in February. So it's a virtual event where you run 100 miles in the month of February for a great cause. We got the Rock and Roll Marathon in April, the Do Hard Things 9/11 run in September, and USMC Marathon in October. And that's just the tip of the spear. We're really going to get rocking and rolling here in 2024. So that's it for all the housekeeping. Nick, let me read your bio real quick, and then we'll get into it. So Nick Klingensmith, after being thrown out of a Las Vegas hotel in a drunken haze, and I can't wait to get into that part, jeopardizing his career and relationships, Nick Klingensmith had decided to make a change. Am I saying your last name correct? Yeah, Klingensmith. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. He's a 4-time cancer survivor, type 1 diabetic, recovering alcoholic with herniated discs, nerve damage, and sleep apnea. And he defies it all when he finds obstacle course racing. He has a mindset of refusing to accept his limitations. He's completed over 100 Spartan races, 6 major marathons, several ultras, and scores of other obstacle endurance events. And he's someone who's walked the path of as a sales professional. He's an expert in propelling achievement and driven professionals and leaders to overcome fear and rejection and push past self-limiting doubts, inspiring them to take purposeful action towards their goals. Nick is raw and passionate storyteller who holds nothing back when revealing who he used to be and the person he is now. A true testament to the power of resilience with an unwavering belief in his purpose to overcome obstacles and inspire others to do the same. And Nick, I'm excited to have you here. I know we connected on TikTok. We have a lot of commonality with our mindset and backgrounds. We've had a couple conversations, and man, I just feel like we have forerunners. Like you're my brother from another mother. So how you doing, Nick?
I am outstanding. I am happy to be here. And, I think you are a perfect example of why when people say you need to get off social media, it's usually someone on social media saying it. Social media is not the problem. We just need to turn our attention to positive influences.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I draw a lot of inspiration from social media. I'm not going to lie. I tend to overdo it from time to time. But man, to have a Facebook feed or a TikTok feed of people that are getting after it and motivation, like it's a double-edged sword that you got to be careful with. But I'm very grateful for it because, I'm able to connect with like-minded individuals like yourself. So tell
Yeah,
us, Nick,
absolutely.
about the first time. And I think we have a little bit of a delay here, so I apologize for that. But tell us about the time that you got thrown out, your drunken haze in Las Vegas, and it led you to your life changing. You know what? I got to change my life.
Yeah, let me set the stage. It was maybe like 5 or 6 in the morning. Who knows what time it was because I'd been up all night drinking for days. I was on the floor of the hallway of my hotel. I was staying at Aria or Cosmo or one of those places, and I was surrounded by security and Las Vegas PD. And they were telling me that I had to go. And I don't know how I got there. So I disagreed. I didn't think I needed to leave because I didn't think I had done anything wrong. Yet, I don't know how I got to that moment. When we go back a couple of days, well, actually, let me go back a couple of months. I had already decided I was going to quit drinking. It was a point in my life where the good nights or the bad nights were outnumbering the good. And I was tired. I didn't want to hear other people commenting on my life, my decisions, my actions, my lifestyle. So I decided I would quit drinking just so I wouldn't have to hear the noise anymore. About 3.5 months later, 4 months later, we land in Vegas. It's the night before our conference. I'm supposed to be a speaker for the company that I'm working for. And we're at a club. I'm pretending that I'm enjoying myself. But the fact is, I was just white knuckling it the entire time and I wanted to drink. So my girlfriend at the time had flown into town. She also worked at the company that I work for. We had all gone out for a couple hours. I was sneaking drinks, or at least I thought I was sneaking drinks. I was probably the only one who actually thought it was a secret. But there came a time in the evening where I decided that she was just in my way. And so I sent her to bed. And then from there, I went downstairs to the bar by myself where I continued to drink. And then somewhere between there and 5 o'clock in the morning, I decided it would be a good idea to pick up a hooker, despite the
Oh,
fact
wow.
that my girlfriend was asleep in our bed. I decided the best place to try to have sex with this hooker was going to be in a hallway closet. And I paid her. I went down the hallway to get a condom from the room that my girlfriend was asleep in. And by the time I, of course, got back to the hallway closet, she was gone. I went back downstairs and then I don't remember anything else. And when I came to at that moment, sitting on the ground, basically saying, well, I was challenged. I lost so much time in my memory. And they eventually convinced me that the best move was for me to leave. So I had to wake up my girlfriend now and spin some story as to why at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning we were being thrown out of the hotel that we were staying there without, of course, telling her the selfish, degenerate scumbag that I had been behaving like for the previous couple hours. I wish I could, I almost wish I could tell you what blanks I could fill in from that night. But the fact is, I can't think of a worse feeling that I had than the fact that not only did we get thrown out of the hotel, not only was my behavior, there's no way I could justify that to myself, even in the worst of moments, but we couldn't go anywhere else. Like, it's not like it's really easy to find a hotel on the strip at 5 in the morning all the time. So we actually had to wait for a couple hours in a hotel lobby for a room to open up for us. And that was probably the worst couple hours I think I could ever function on my own. Didn't have the brain power. I was still having like many blackouts. I mean, I was completely in this lost, just black hole of helplessness and despair. So by the time we finally got to a hotel room, by the time my head hit the pillow, I said out loud, I don't want to live this way anymore. And that was a moment that ultimately saved my life.
Wow. That's an incredible. Usually, when people have that moment where, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and it's time to change. It usually comes from a story like that, and a lot of people have stories like that. They're just not willing to talk about it so openly and vulnerably. So I just appreciate you sharing, because that's real life. That's real. That's raw. That's relevant. And, I definitely appreciate that. And I think a lot of people can resonate with having a moment of just like, damn it, you know what? I can't continue to live this way, because you're doing these things. And usually when you want to change, it's because that, that you're not being congruent with your values and the best version of yourself. There has to be a better way to live. And wow, I mean, that is an incredible start. So what happened from there? Like, did your girlfriend find out? When did you start to make the change, and what habits, and how did you start that process?
There was a lot of things that really transpired at that exact moment, because it's not just that I got drunk or had a bad drunk or, had an incident. It was that my absence from the conference the next day was going to be very conspicuous, since I was in fact one of our speakers. So everybody knew that I was a drunk. Everybody I worked with knew I was a drunk. This wasn't going to be a surprise to a lot of them, but there was no way that I could hide this incident from my girlfriend, since she got thrown out of a hotel in the middle of the night. There was no way I could hide this from my boss, since I was not allowed back at the hotel and I had to fly home. There was no way that I could hide from this. And so I had to face it. But I was very fortunate, because my father's got 40 years of sobriety now, and he was a longtime alcoholic. And so I always had a role model. I knew that at one point in my life, I would end up having to quit drinking and following a program of sobriety. I knew I would get there. And because I was able to watch him, he was the happiest guy I know when he doesn't have a reason to be happy. He's just happy. And so when I really got to this moment of just basically, I had a live or die moment, right? Like, I didn't want to live through that nightmare anymore. So the only other option was to stop living or to live differently. And so I wanted what he had. So I flew back to Tampa, and the very next day, I started my own program of sobriety, and I never looked back. And the thing is, there wasn't this big, I need to live a different way thing. It just created a void. So I first really had to focus on just sobriety, and I had to focus on letting go of all the bad habits and the selfish habits. And I had to focus on stripping away all the things that were trying to kill me. It wasn't for probably about 2 years later. And, my story has a lot of, you basically need like a Venn diagram to keep up with my story sometimes, but it was about 2 years later that I came down, that I was diagnosed with cancer for the 4th time. And this time was different than the others, because I was sober, and because I was just so tired of getting cancer. I was convinced this would be the one. I kept saying and repeating, there's only so many times you can get cancer and not die. Like, when is my turn going to happen? And the difference being, this time though, I could feel emotions. The only emotion I was in touch with for the previous, 35 years before that, was anger. So this was different, because I all of a sudden was in touch with fear and realizing I had things in my life I didn't want to lose. And I felt, uncertain, and I felt afraid, and I didn't really want to talk about it. And, I would almost cry. Sometimes I did cry my way to work in the morning, just because I was trying to process the things that I was going through, because with cancer, there's rarely answers that people understand, and I've had a very fortunate route with cancer. I haven't had major invasive. I haven't had chemo. I haven't had to do radiation. I've had surgery multiple times. I have to take a pill every day for the rest of my life, but still there's a lot worse outcomes. And so I was really just kind of like putting myself into this black hole, of like despair. And here's the thing. The first 3 times I had cancer, they could never really tell me, okay, it's gone. They could never really give me an all clear. But with the 4th time, which was in the back of my head, they cut it out, and they told me that there's nothing left. They literally were like, okay, you have an all clear back there. And so I found myself sober 2 years, dating a girl that's my now wife. I had just been promoted at work, and I had just now decisively beaten cancer for the 4th time. And I was more lost than I had ever been in my life. And it was right then, October 9th, 2016, that my boss walked into my office and said, "Hey, Nick, I want to do a Spartan race in a couple months, and I want you to do it with me.
There you go. And that set the so you were lost. And this is what when I'm coaching people who find themselves like disconnected from their purpose. I mean, there's no greater pain than to be disconnected from your purpose. And oftentimes what we need is we need a compelling challenge to look forward to, something that's going to demand of us, something that's going to be in alignment with the best version of ourselves. And so you found yourself lost, kind of on a high, but also at a low because you didn't know where to go. And then you were challenged to go do a Spartan race. Tell us about that first Spartan and how you trained and what the outcome of that was.
So, when my boss asked me that day, he was like, "Hey, I want to do a Spartan race." And of course, I had never even heard of it before. And back then, 2016, there wasn't the social media surrounding it that there is now. So there wasn't that much information available. You really had to go looking for it. And all I understood it to be was a 8 to 10 mile trail run, a mud run with obstacles, carrying heavy things, crawling under things, over things, swinging from things. And so I thought to myself, well, actually, I said out loud, no, fuck no. This is not something I'm interested in doing. I have no interest in being that uncomfortable. And to get up and train for this and to run for this and to exercise, no. And look at the people on the website. They all look unhappy. No, I'm not doing this. So that's when I went home that night. And I hadn't realized just how lost and sort of, empty I felt. But I went home that night and I was sitting on my couch. And that's just when I realized I already was that uncomfortable. That's when I realized I didn't have this goal. I didn't have direction anymore. And, up until that point, it would probably just been my life had been about survival. I had viewed everything as an affront, an attack. I always saw myself as this gritty victim. And now that I was there, I was like, that's not how I feel anymore. And so, you know what? I need a change. I need to do something different. And so I signed up for the race. And that was the scariest thing I had done. But the scariest thing I did after that is I set the alarm for 5 a.m. the next day to wake up before work and train. That to me was like unheard of. Even now, I mean, I struggle to wake up early. I spoke to my dad on the phone today and I told him that I blame him because when I was a kid, he used to wake me up. He was a built-in snooze button because he'd come by the room every 5 minutes giving me a warning. It was almost time to wake up. So now I'm trained to hit the snooze. So that was the most uncomfortable thing I had ever done in my life, was to wake up early before work. And I know that to wake up early before work to train. And as crazy as that sounds, that moment redefined everything that I knew or previously believed about myself, because I just didn't see myself as being somebody who can get up early to train. I didn't see myself who could make uncomfortable things an everyday part of his life. But yet the more that I did it, the race was 9 weeks away and I didn't miss a single day of training in 9 weeks. I didn't oversleep my workout one day. I went traveling and I found out how to make sure I could do my workout while I was traveling. I was fully committed to this. And it was like every step that I took just got me more excited about the next step. I also had it in my head, this was going to be a one and done event. I didn't say, hey, I'm going to go become an obstacle course and endurance athlete. To me, marathon was a 4-letter word. Like, these were things that I never thought possible or part of my life. And so we did the event in December of 2016 out in Bunnell, Florida. And it was, now I race for time. I want to improve upon my time. But back then it was just about the experience and just getting through it. And every single obstacle was like a metaphor for something that got me there in the first place. So it was a great day. It was, there was 5 of us that went out there and did it. We didn't really race together. Everybody sort of went off. We've lost each other at our own paces, but just putting myself out. I'm a house cat. All right. So to put myself out in the wilderness, and I'm afraid of snakes, and to run through Florida swamps and mud. I mean, I hadn't realized just all the things in my life that I was allowing to hold me back in my life until I did that race. And so I came out the other side. I can't say I came out a different man, but I came out ready to be a different man.
Mm. And how did participating in that first Spartan shape your perspective on personal growth and resilience, and what was it that made you want to do it again and again and again?
when you're coming off that high, you want to feel like that every day. So the race was on a Saturday, and we stayed out towards Jacksonville. And the very next morning, my wife and I just drove out to Flagler Beach, and we had some breakfast at this place out on the water. It was probably like a 65-degree cool day. I just can't tell you the feeling of serenity that I had, this feeling of achievement and this newfound this newfound confidence, this newfound part of me. It had tapped into something that had been there that I had just been stuffing down for years and years. So, I didn't take my medal off until I got home to hang it up. And that's my tradition now. So you see all those behind me. I'll wear it on the plane. I'll wear it for 2 days if I have to. I wear it until I get home to hang it up. But, we thought it was going to be one and done. And then when I got back to work that Monday, I went into my boss's office. We shut the door. We got out the whiteboard. We started planning our first trifecta. It just became part of what we do. And, I thought I was going to do one trifecta. I ended up doing 2 that year. I ended up doing 5 the next year. The more I did this, the more it became a part of my life. And it wasn't just about the racing. There are people out there who, to them, this is a hobby, and that's fine. I don't want to take anything away from anybody else's fun, but it became a lifestyle to me. And I say this all the time, that good habits are gateway drugs, because, I told you that I had to wake up at 5 a.m. before work. Well, that meant I had to start going to bed at a fairly regular time. And so here I was, 37 years old, whatever ish, giving myself the first regular sleep cycle I had ever had in my life. With every one of those good choices became, all right, well, now I'm going to do more races. So I'm going to focus on recovery. So I'm going to stretch, and I want to get mentally tougher. So I'm going to focus on meditation. And then I want to feel better and stronger and more powerful and healthier. So I'm going to start eating better. And all these things continue to add up. And the fact, it just makes you want more of them instead of going the opposite direction.
Yeah, and the idea that I think what you said something in there that really stood out to me. It was like you tapped into something that was there, you just didn't know it, and it unleashed this whole, just a better version of you that was more healthier, better mindset, that aligned your life in such a better way. And I think a lot of people have that. They just have to experiment and figure out what that is. And I think that's fantastic that you came back and you're like, you know what, I want more of this. And you continue down that path. What are the most important lessons that you've learned from obstacle course racing that you've been able to apply in other areas of your life?
Your why is your everything. This is something that gets talked about all the time, and I know that it feels cliche to a lot of people, but it's true. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters why you're doing it. And I think that's something too, where we get to these parts in our life, like you said earlier, you get disconnected from your purpose. Well, it's because the same thing I wanted when I was 7 years old isn't the same thing I'm going to wanted when I was 35. And it's not the same thing I'm going to want when I'm 50. We go through these seasons of our life where sometimes the purpose changes, or we've achieved something and we find ourselves lost again. So it really helped me to put that in perspective, because, in June of 22, I fractured my rib in the third mile of an 8-mile race. I completed that race. That was the first time I had ever run with "fuck cancer" across my chest. I was running for friends of mine who were going through tough times with cancer. It wasn't for me. It was for them. It was a very powerful why that was able to keep me going. Number 2, and this one's critical, failure needs to be experienced. I think far too often we as people have grown to this part of our lives where we feel like we have to know everything, or better yet, we feel like we want other people to know that we know everything. When the fact is, you can't know everything unless you go into it with the knowledge that you don't know everything. And, there's an obstacle in Spartan race, which you'll see, it's called the Z-wall. And it's just it's a zigzag wall. It's you use your hands and your feet to traverse across blocks to get across it. And it's an obstacle where in the first 2 years of obstacle course racing, I would accept help from people. That means like somebody would hold your back a little bit to help you guide across it. I wish I hadn't done that. And I'm not knocking anybody who takes help. Everyone should have their own race, whatever. But all it did was prevent me from learning how to do the obstacle, to learn how to beat it.
Mm.
And the reason I took help was because I was afraid of failing the obstacle. But technically, getting help on the obstacle was still failing the obstacle. So my fear of failure caused me to fail it. And so failure needs to be experienced. Number 3, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I know you talk about this all the time, but comfort is where you go to die. Comfort's where they pump you up full of drugs because you're on your deathbed. Looking for a new job is uncomfortable. Stepping out of a bad relationship is uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. But the fact is, like I said before, I was uncomfortable because I was stuck. My comfort zone, I had created a prison cell for myself. And I was uncomfortable in it, which leads us to the next thing. Just start. I can overthink my way out of into a straitjacket, and I think a lot of times right now, if you look at people setting their New Year's resolutions, or I call it just their New Year's bullshit, we can think, oh, I'm going to start this, or I'm going to start that. And I don't know, maybe it's too complicated. And we create all these steps for ourselves. We build something up in our head so much that we don't end up starting at all. Just start. Just take that first action. When I was presented with the opportunity to do the race, the first thing I did was sign up. And that was the commitment. That was the action step, was to register. Then I did the next thing, set the alarm, and then just do the first workout. We don't have to think about the 9th workout. People don't don't train or don't run marathons because they think about the 26 miles. It all starts with the first mile. When I ran the Boston Marathon, I couldn't run 3 miles 6 months before it. Just start. I just talked about another lesson, which is, of course, you are your habits. What you do, you are what you, Jesus, hold on. Who you are is a result of what you do repeatedly. Yeah. And good habits are gateway drugs. Good habits are superpowers. If you stop here, you die here. This is something I talk about all the time. I talk about it in my book, and it's a lesson that I learned really from diabetes. But the fact is, if we don't keep moving, this is where we die. If you're going through hell, you got to keep going. By the way, yes, there's like a couple more I have that I talk about all the time.
Oh, keep rolling.
What I think that you'll definitely appreciate is that physical endurance training is mental endurance training. I was even thinking about it this morning because I do a lot of zone 2 running. And my zone 2 right now is just awful, and I'm blaming diabetes, but I'm not sure why. And I'm suffering through painfully slow miles that honestly I probably could have walked faster, but I was trying to stick to a program. And I also told myself that, hey, don't worry about the physical benefit right now. Get the mental benefit. Just know that you can keep going. I even shared a story with a buddy of mine earlier today, and I told him how when I was training for the Berlin Marathon back in 2021, by the way, I don't know why I always sign up for these damn fall marathons when I live in Florida, because there is no place worse on the planet to train. But so I'm training in August, and I'm supposed to go out for like a 15-mile run. It's about 197,000 degrees out, and I bonked hard around mile 11. I just got so dehydrated, and I was like, okay, I'm done. So I texted my wife and I asked her to come pick me up. She was about 10 minutes away. It would have been real easy for me to just stand there and wait, but I decided to grit out one more mile. I don't know if I got any physical benefits from that mile or not. Probably not, given the shape that I was in. But mentally, I knew it was more important mentally to keep going and to suffer through that, because I was going to become mentally stronger from it. But through obstacle course racing, I also picked up better habits. I meditate now. I handle things with my breath now that I used to handle with really mean words before. And, it helps you pause. It helps you reflect. Another key thing that has come and helped me a lot is visualization. When I ran the 2018 Boston Marathon, I visualized for 90 straight days me running down Boylston and crossing the finish line. And when I showed up to Boston that day, it was arguably the worst weather conditions in the history of the Boston Marathon. It was 18 degrees at the start. It was sleeting the entire time, 40-mile-an-hour headwinds. And people were like, oh, didn't you want to quit? And I'm like, bro, for 90 straight days, all I saw was me crossing the line. I literally did not know how to quit. There was never another possibility that entered my mind. the other thing, and this is something that I've now learned that helps me in my life right now, especially as I'm starting, a new career as a motivational speaker, and I have so much blank space in front of me, but chase your fears. I don't mean face them. I mean, chase them. If there's something that you're afraid of, get up and run after it. I'm really, really afraid of snakes, like really afraid of snakes. The December beast, there was water. People said they saw like 3 or 4 water moccasins. You're literally spending half a day in the Florida swamp. I'm never going to go handle a snake, but I'm not going to let my fear prevent me from taking the steps that I want to take.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's really helped me, and this is something, when you and I spoke last week or when it was, I mentioned a couple other people in the obstacle course racing world. And one of the key components to building a resilient mind that I think it's so overlooked because we're still in the society of, where people are afraid to actually be vulnerable. Everyone needs a wolf pack. Everyone needs a tribe. Nobody does this shit alone. We would have never got here by ourselves. And being part of a community gives you this just sense of belonging and purpose that I feel we all need. But it also, it's a strength. And the more that you contribute to the community, it becomes a self-renewing energy that it's just so awesome to be part of something bigger than yourself. Which leads me to, and this isn't the final lesson, but another one that I talk about a lot, which is, you hear me say it in all my videos, live inspired. And I mean that. Inspiration is everywhere. Inspire yourself. Do something that you don't think you can do. These races present a unique opportunity to be inspired, whether it be the adaptive athlete that you see out there showing us what mental toughness really is, whether it be the fear I overcame, the obstacle that I couldn't beat before. There's just so many ways to prove to yourself that you're not limited, that you're not limited by those pre-existing thoughts. There's so many ways out there to just be inspired, that inspire you to do new things and to do hard things. So literally I could go off probably another 25 of these, but these are probably the 10 core lessons that I carry with me. And I'm going to say on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, I wrote all these down. These are things that I have talked about. This is what, we're on the same wavelength, brother. And when I think about like doing hard things, what I love about endurance racing, it's predominantly mental. And when you're training, it lines up other positive habits that enable your well-being, your physically, emotionally, spiritually. When I'm out there running a long run, there's times I want to quit. That's when I get really connected with God. Like, just shoot me now. Why? But I have that conversation, and then I feel connected. I'm like, thank you. I get gratitude. Like I feel so grateful that I'm physically able to do it. A big component, tribe. That's why we're starting the Do Hard Things Nation and creating a tribe of people that are like-minded, because biologically we are designed to be connected with other people. We have to have that. I know when I was in my darkest, most disparaging moment where I wanted to end it all, like I felt like I was just so disconnected from everyone, and I couldn't see a bright, compelling future going forward. And I was living in the past, and I had anxiety about the future. I wasn't living in the present moment, and I wasn't connected with other people. And we have to have that if you're going to live a fulfilling life. And you mentioned, fear of failure, like that paralyzes so many people. And this is one, whether you love him or hate him, Elon Musk talks about this all the time with launching rockets into space. He was asked, how do you feel every time one of these multi-million-dollar rockets explode? Do you feel like a failure? And he's like, you know what? We're pressing so hard. We learn lessons every time one of these rockets explode, that we actually cheer it, because we're going to learn a lesson that's going to enable us to get to the next step, which is, beyond what most people are think is even conceivable. And so, to your point, this is a lifestyle, and we encourage this type of living, like embracing that endurance mindset and putting yourself in a controlled environment to get outside of your comfort zone enables you to tackle the struggles that are going to happen in life, that are going to happen to you. And Nick, I lost you on the StreamYard, but I still have you here on the phone, so I'm not sure what's going on. I noticed during the interview we had some technical issues, like there's a delay on the StreamYard.
I should be back. There we
There
go.
you go. But now there's an echo again.
Oh yeah, hold on. I got that taken care of too.
Okay, cool. And for those listening, apologize for the tech stuff. We tried something new this time around since we met on TikTok. We're trying to live stream on TikTok. So there's a little bit of delay and some tech issues, but we'll try to clean that up the best we can. So appreciate you pushing through. But definitely the conversation's been fantastic. So all that, I'm a huge fan, brother. I like I said, we're on the same sheet of music.
No, I meant it like what I said in the beginning of the show. 2020 did me a great favor because I just went on an unfriending spree, and I didn't care what side of the aisle you were on. I just didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this is my feed.
Yeah,
I don't have to. Like,
you subscribe to me.
Yeah. Like, this person's not going to care. Like, I don't see them in real life. They're not going to care if I unfriend them on Facebook. I'm not being petty. I just don't want to see it. So like, I'll accept friend requests from almost anybody that knows a real human being that is connected in some way. But I do check their page and I'm like, yeah. And again, it's not even about what they represent. I mean, there are things that I'm sure, everyone's got their line, but for the most part, I just want to see positive stuff. I want to see encouraging, positive stuff. And I actually don't care if that people say how social media is so fake and then they show the best parts of their life. So what? I want to see people living their lives. I want to see people getting that new car and that new house and bragging about this because I want to know that good things are happening. So I like it. And then when I connect to somebody like you, I'm like, oh yeah, hold on. This guy's speaking my language. I'm a taker on TikTok. I put my content out, but I follow less than 100 people, and you're one of them. So,
well, hey, awesome.
Yeah, TikTok, I just usually is where I primarily will post and engage with people. Facebook is more of my kind of friends community. Instagram, I'm a little more active in terms of who I follow, but
yeah,
I just you can't manage all your feeds all the time.
And I think that's important. You get to curate that. And if you're not careful, you're going to get sucked down and into other rabbit holes where people just aren't doing things that are positive. And here humans are the only creature in the animal kingdom that can imagine a bright future and then curate and put together the team and the resources to achieve it. But what keeps us from doing that? We live in a society where we live in an incredibly abundant society, and I love our country because of that. But there's almost so many options, and we are so focused on entertainment now that people are living vicariously through other people, getting that little dopamine hit, and it satiates them just enough to keep them subdued from living their actual life. And then they wonder why they're just not happy. They'll get the little dopamine of happiness, the little fickle stuff, but not like the true, fulfilling happiness. And I heard a startling stat not too long ago that the average American now spends less than 2% of their time outdoors. We're inside, we're plugged in, we've got fluorescent lighting, we're vitamin D deficient, we're entertained and satiated by all this. We're plugged into the freaking matrix, man.
We can look at social media while we're walking outdoors, it doesn't have to be all bad.
Yeah. The people that are outdoors, they're disconnected. So I just don't, we weren't designed for all of this. And I think that's what's lent its hand to the mental health challenges that we have and why so many people are feeling unhappy and unfulfilled. And that's why I think endurance sports and, cause I work from home, I do a lot of my work on a computer. I'm inside, but there's just something about being outdoors that just feels fucking primal, right? I'm focused on the task at hand. It sucks while you're doing it, at least especially at the start. But then when you're done, it also feels freaking amazing. And humans, we're the ultimate endurance creature. There's a great book called Born to Run. We're designed a cheetah, a lot of animals in the animal kingdom will outrun us, but we have the physical and mental capability to stalk and stay on that prey. And it's like the tortoise and the hare. We have that biological capability to stalk them and run them down. And there's just something like when you're doing a Spartan or a marathon or some type of ultra event, I mean, even just slinging weights at the gym, that just feels like, alive. Like, I just feel like it's like the same sense you get around sitting around a campfire. Like, people are fascinated by that. When you're done with that activity, it just feels really freaking good. And I just think that we need more of it. I just think we need more of it. I think it's good for us in so many different ways. So
the word you said that hit home was primal. And a friend of mine, Ryan, that's how he describes it. I mean, he's very passionate about it. And again, like for me, I consider myself a house cat. So when I get those opportunities where I'm like, I love it when I'm in the middle of a race somewhere, you know, if you go look through some of my pictures, if you look when I did a bone frog a couple of years ago, bone frog OCR, there's a big streak of blood across my face. And I hadn't realized it. I had wiped it there. I hadn't realized it because I was bleeding from somewhere else. And someone was like, oh, you're bleeding. And I'm like, cool. Like, you know,
yes.
I'm like, all right. Like, cool. Like, it's, you know, up until recently, I wore suits to work for years. And I think the more my life was going that direction, I'm not even saying the bad stuff. I'm just saying the non-athletic, non-endurance, non-obstacle course. I was just becoming more and more of a wimp, but life is not going to get any easier. So you got to keep up somehow.
Yeah. It's easy to turn into a wimp, right? I fell, I had just a training run the other day, and I fell and I scuffed both my knees up, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's just training. I'm fine. I'm good to go. Like, I actually felt like, I just felt alive. Like, I just felt good. Like, I'm bleeding. I'm human. I'm okay. It didn't actually hurt. It looked worse than it was, but I'm like, hell yeah. Like, you know what? I'm living. I'm just, I don't know. There's just something about it. We need to be scuffed up like that a little bit. We have to have some pain in our life. And the more that we can inoculate ourselves in a controlled environment to it, like when life like comes to try to dust us up, you know, you make yourself harder to kill. You can weather the storm. That all of those things transition into your mental well-being and preparedness. And it's just so important for us to continue to do that. I know my life is infinitely better when I'm training and in that routine, but there's this dichotomy of like, you get that little inner bitch voice, like, you got to just slow down and just enjoy the day. And why don't you just stay in bed a little bit longer? It's so weird, right? It's so weird that we have that, we've got the two wolves inside of us. The one that's, you know, the warrior and wants to get after it. This other one is like just trying to convince you to just compromise your well-being for comfort. And I think so many people succumb to that.
Absolutely. You know, it's because they think that should be the goal, you know, and yeah, I mean, I'm not Goggins. I'm not trying to be hard all the time. Like, I have things I enjoy and comforts, but I look at it like I'm earning my comforts and they're temporary comforts. And when you look at it that way, like, I want a nice comfy bed too. But you know how I overcome the inner voice is I simply make a plan and execute. Because if I wake up not knowing what I'm going to do, I don't get up. That's it. If I'm like, oh, I'll get up and I'll do some of this, I'll some of that, then no, I'm waking up 10 minutes before I have to. And I just wasted my morning and I'm chasing all day. And so I want to just get up and be purposeful with my time. Sometimes, you know, when I first started Spartan, one of the greatest benefits to me was the extra time I had with my dog in the morning. Things that I wasn't doing enough of, you know, that I never thought I had time for because I wasn't making it, because it was that inner bitch telling me I needed to sleep more. I needed to be in bed more, which is silly considering the amount of times, you know, the decade plus of 4 a.m. nights I spent on weeknights out at the bar. I don't know why all of a sudden I thought I needed sleep, and even now, you know, like I get up in the morning, I'm able to spend quality time with the dogs before the day begins. And, you know, I usually finish my video that I do towards the end of a workout. I love every once in a while. I will tell you, I will call them trolls, are actually my favorite people on the internet. Cause sometimes, and TikTok is probably my favorite because those are the funniest ones. But and I mean, like, people will come out like put a shirt on. I'm like, maybe it's hot out, bro. Like, but but you know, I post my videos on LinkedIn too. And I actually, not too long ago, somebody sent me sort of condescending message about like, this is a business platform, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, listen, if you and I are standing at a network event right now, I'm not asking you about your copiers. Like, I want to know what interests you. And this is what interests me. Yeah. And then at the same time, I'm like, if you want, I'll show you the other picture that I post once in a while where I was 235 pounds. Like, my message doesn't have to be for everybody. And the thing about some of the real hard, extreme people like a Goggins or Jocko or Haynes is that if somebody's on the couch right now and they just see them and they don't know their whole story, that's going to give them the excuse they need to not get up. They don't know that he was 300 plus pounds and, he like was dyslexic and he had to overcome everything besides just that. They think he's just about the running junkie and hurt yourself guy, not a mindset guy. If you don't know him, you don't follow him. You get a lot of that. So I do think that a lot of people need to see average people getting up and doing things, because let me be the inspiration for step one. Yeah. Like, because if I can do it, to all the people listening now or in the future, I promise you, you can do it.
Yeah, I agree. I draw inspiration from Goggins, a lot of those guys, but at the same time, not everyone's a Navy SEAL, right? Not everyone has done or has the capability to do extraordinary things. And as much as I love Goggins, there's also a man there that has a lot of demons as well. And I use the coin the term do hard things a lot, but I also believe that not everything in your life should be absolutely hard all the time. Like if it is, there's something wrong. You should be operating from inspired action, and we can save that for a whole other day. But to your point, I love the story of everyday people that are, like the story you shared as soon as you came on, right? That like, these are like, this is real, raw, relevant life that happens to a lot of people, and sharing your message and how you overcame that to live a better life, I think is, that's what we all aspire to be. And those are the conversations I love having.
Well, let me circle back on something you asked about in the beginning. Cause, you had made a comment about, thank you for sharing that and being so open about it. Well, here's the thing. If I didn't, the rest of the conversation isn't that interesting. I'm just a guy who plays on jungle gyms in the woods on weekends. I'm just a mediocre middle-aged athlete. And I realized this when I was putting my book together, that nobody's going to care about who I am if they didn't know who I was. And if I'm not very open and honest about who I was, then who am I helping? Nobody's going to care about the guy who had it all together and then started doing this stuff. It's who am I reaching? Because all my problems, all the things that I'm not the only diabetic. I'm not the only person with cancer. I'm not the only person in recovery. I'm not the only person with nerve damage or sleep apnea. I'm not the only person with problems. And I think what's kind of interesting about my story is there's not one rabbit hole that does it all. So I feel like it is relatable. And if I put it all out there, I think there's just enough people who are going through things who can relate, and then they can help. And so the lesson that I've learned recently, which that's why this obstacle course racing and endurance life journey, this doing hard things journey, is a constant teacher, because the thing I've learned the most recently in the last year here is that vulnerability is a superpower. Like, I'll tell all my deepest fears right now, because when I do, I name them, I face them, and they no longer have power over me. So I'm an open book, literally. I shared the most darkest, most embarrassing moment of my life. Like, it's not like there's not been other moments, but that's about as naked as I can get.
I'm pretty much the same. I find the conversations far more interesting, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that." I'm like, "Well, that's just being truthful." It's your point. It's facing fear. It's overcoming that. And the more that I engage with those dark things, I don't know, they just I become stronger, I feel. And it's more relevant to other people because no one else is having. A lot of people are so scared to have those conversations. And you listed off a laundry list of like ailments, right? You're a cancer survivor. You got sleep apnea. You got some, herniated disc, but you're still out there getting after it. And there's a lot of people that I talk to because they're like, you're. Maybe I had a doctor one time. Shouldn't you be slowing down? You're like, you're in your middle 40s now. Maybe it's time to take there's no freaking way. There's no way that I'm backing off. What advice, because everyone has got some ailments, but what advice do you give people? What encouragement would you give someone despite to continue to give obstacle course racing a try or some other type of event, despite having an ailment of some type?
The ailment is why you have to do it.
Yeah.
It's the ailment is why you have to do it, because otherwise the ailment is holding you back. And here's the thing, you mentioned a doctor, right? Because my doctor told me I can't run anymore. I have 7 herniated discs. You know how many things doctors told me I couldn't do anymore? I'm a type 1 diabetic. You know how many doctors told me I couldn't do anymore? But here's the part they leave out. When they say, Jay, you can't run anymore without pain. Without pain. You can't do this because of your ailment without pain. They just assume we have the same goal. They assume that my goal is to avoid pain.
Yeah.
That's not my goal. My goal is to live my life, to experience as much as I can, doing what I can. If pain is the cost of admission, oh, well. I mean, there are things like, so, I made it through that race with the broken rib, and that was one of the proudest moments of my life, honestly. But 2 months ago in Dallas, I strained my hamstring and I had to bow out of an ultra. And I hoofed it to the aid station and hitchhiked back. Like, I didn't have the same why in that race. It's not like you don't just run into pain just to be stupid. Like, I had 20 more miles of that race. What was I going to accomplish that day? Nothing. So, but that said, like, it might be harder, but do hard things.
Absolutely. Yes. No, can I get an amen? I mean, a good Lord, that was a sermon there. I love it. Don't let these ailments, if you will, limit you. And to your point, you mentioned earlier, I love seeing these other athletes that, have no limbs or they have their ailment and they're out there getting after it anyway, just proving to all of us that, everything is mindset. I mean, it's your own limiting belief. And if you accept that gift of that doctor telling you can't or shouldn't do something, and you start to believe it, you're just holding yourself back. Now, you need to be responsible, and we're not trying to hurt you or encourage you to do something that's going to, cause, a diminishment of quality of life. But I tell you what, if I couldn't run, when the doctor told me, like, I've obviously made a beeline for a second opinion, but to your point, it was like, yeah, I'm going to have pain. I've got some degenerative discs in my back. I've got some knee pain, but I can't imagine life not running. Like, my life will be worse without it. I got a buddy of mine who's, we're going to be doing an adventure race, Larry. He mentioned something about his doctors. He's got a foot issue going on. And he's like, you know what? I just assume them just amputate it. Just let me have a new limb and let me work through that, because I can't imagine a life where I'm not able to run, because I need it for my mental health and well-being and my quality of life. That is part of my quality of life.
And the fact is this, training and I'm just going to focus on diabetes for a minute, but as a type 1 diabetic, the amount of training and preparation and studying and trial and error and things that are required to go into a race, that's the same way I overcome any life obstacle. Like, you name the challenge, find out what it is, what actually has to happen in order for you to overcome this challenge, learn how to do it, train how to do it, and do it. Like, is that not how we apply to anything? Like, when I wanted to go to college, I had to figure out, what do I want to study? Where do I want to go? How do I apply? Where do we execute? That's it. Like, break everything down. So I have a whiteboard over here in my room. And 2 days ago, I had a really kick-ass goal setting session for the year for my business. And I'm pretty meticulous and nerd like when it comes to this. And I reverse engineer all the way down to the day if I can, but I have a lot of blank space. I'm new to this business. I'm new to this industry, and there's a lot of things I don't know. But still, I've got my tangible, broken down goals like right there in front of me that I'll always be working towards something. And there was the same way. I said, all right, what are my needs? What is my obstacle? What am I trying to accomplish? Okay, what are the things that has to happen? Now I need to learn how to do it. And now I'm at the point where on Tuesday morning, I show up and I execute.
Yeah. That's what stands in the way of most people, is not having a clear vision of what they want. When you can get clear on what you want, then all you got to do is line up, well, what skills must I develop in order to get what I want? And a lot of people are afraid to skill up. And I don't know, you're not going to find fulfillment in life if you don't have clarity in your future and you're not making progress toward it, which is why a lot of people are depressed, or trauma is controlling them because they're living in a different time zone, or they're so worried and anxious about the shit that they can't control that's going to happen to them, where if they just got crystal clear on what they wanted and we're making progress toward that and focusing on that, then resiliency becomes a byproduct. You're not consumed, and you're not, these other things won't take control of you. And
doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters why you're doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, when I talk to people about mindset, whatnot, that's usually where I try to, I tell people I'm a time traveler. I'm going to help you get clear on what it is that you want. And we're going to craft a plan to get you from point A to point B as quickly as we can, so you can, achieve that personal freedom. Then and we're going to do some hard things along the way. And then you're going to be resilient for it. And if you just focus on that instead of all this other shit that's happening to you, or the shit that has happened to you, you'll be way better off.
Absolutely.
So, well, so what's the 2024 looking like for you? What are you getting yourself into?
Well, as I just nailed down my goals, we're going to focus on the business a lot. And, that is going to be the centerpiece for everything. As I'm building my speaking business, I fully expect, my vision here is to really build this as a lifestyle business for myself as well. Meaning that, I want to coordinate races and events with speaking events, and really just to engage with people across the country in different places. Like, when I visualize what success looks like, I see myself recruiting people from the audience to go on a race 2 days later in whatever local venue I'm at. So, as if I get fortunate and the revenue generation happens bigger and faster than I have planned for, then I'll be beefing up my races. But I'm going to probably stick primarily to Spartan for most of the year, because I have an Unbreakable pass, and there's a few key events that I'm going to do. Jacksonville is the first one, the Vernon Ultra. Get this, the New Jersey. So I wrote the bio before I got hurt, so I was expecting to have hit my 100th race by now. I'm actually sitting pretty at 97, but April 27th in Vernon, New Jersey, I'm going to do the Spartan Ultra. It'll be my 45th birthday and my 100th race.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be a good day to line up. But the big goal of the year is to complete the Killington Ultra in Vermont.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I got the same aspirations. We're putting events together and doing some meetups and challenges and getting a community wrapped around training, mindset, movement, and creating a tribe of like-minded people to connect. So I'm so, I don't think that there's, when we connect with other people, I don't think it's coincidence. I think that our paths were meant to cross, and I'm so honored to be connected with you. I'm motivated, inspired by your daily posts and inspiration.
Likewise.
And, I look forward to, I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of different events, but I have not done a Spartan yet. So I'm excited to meet up with you at some point and knock one of those out.
Don't forget to use that code.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So Killington, that's the one in Vermont?
Yep.
That's September 14th?
Yep.
Okay. Because that would be cool to be there on your 100th, on your 45th birthday.
Well,
I've never been to Vermont.
New Jersey is the one that'll be the 100th. That'll be Vernon, New Jersey on April 27th.
April 27th. Okay. I'm going to look at my calendar.
Which is also a mountain, because why do anything easy?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, yeah, I'm going to look at my calendar. I know we've got a couple other events going on. The 27th I'm going to work because we're running a marathon, but the September 14th might be able to pull that off, but we're hosting our event the week before. So, but, well, what else? We're at an hour. So any other parting thoughts or advice or anything you'd like to leave the audience before we call it a day?
Man, I'll tell you what, where you're in. So you're 1 hour behind me. So it's 3:15 your time, right?
Yep.
All right. So it is 3:15 your time, 4:15 my time. It is Friday, the 29th. So we're talking 24, 48 plus 8, 56. So we got roughly 55 hours left in the year, right?
Yeah.
Let's get started on those goals right now.
Right now.
This minute. If there's somebody listening right now, when we hang up, put the phone down and get to work. Just start. There's no reason to wait. If it's good enough for January, it's good enough for today. Otherwise, it's just noise.
I love it when you start your videos. You're like, hey, right now. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. What do you got right now? I love it.
It's funny, right when I started that was for me. Like I I didn't want to start a video like, okay, everybody. And I was like, wait, hold on. What? And then I'm like, I literally was like, just shut up right here. And I was talking to myself and I was like, oh, I like that. I'm just going to do that. And it's self-talk. And it's a good daily reminder every morning to just be present. Just be present right now for this one moment right here. Just wherever you are right here.
I love it. Like right now, it gets my attention. Like, okay, I'm here. What do you got to say? If not now, then when, right?
Exactly.
Stop living in the past. Stop living in the future. It's right now. Get here. No, I love it, man. Well, hey, how can people get in contact with you?
All right. I'm on social media everywhere at Stride Motivation. I am on LinkedIn as my name and Facebook as my name, but Stride Motivation is probably the easiest way to find me. Also, stridemotivation.com.
Awesome. We'll put all your contact information in the show notes. Appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
It was a lot of fun, Jay. I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah, likewise. And I suspect that we'll be crossing paths again at some point in time. So for everyone out there in the Do Our Things Nation, just, hey, live life on offense. Keep grinding. If you need any additional support, go to doourthingsnation.com. We appreciate you. Keep doing hard things. We'll see you guys in the next episode.